Well, hello everybody. Welcome to another episode of We Watch Shudder. My name's JD. Who's here with me?
It's Michelle.
It's Michelle. It's also Riley.
It's Michelle.
Riley's over here on the bed. Michelle's over there in the office. Do you have any pet friends there today, Michelle?
I was going to say, do you want to tell them that Riley is a dog and not a person?
No.
Oh, okay, that's fair.
Thanks for
no,
ruining
I do not
it.
have. Well, you asked if I had any pet friends.
Yeah,
you already did the reveal.
It's my pet person.
Oh, well,
He's
I've
a good
heard
boy.
of that kink. Yeah. Oh, good job, Riley. No, I do not have any pet friends. I did spend all day volunteering at the shelter that I volunteer at outside of work, but it was a work event where we did a lot of things, and my back is killing me. So I was around pet friends all day.
Is it a dog shelter?
Yes.
What's it called,
The one
Michelle?
that I spend it is for love of dog rescue. And if anybody out there wants to help contribute to our mission to successfully rehome dogs, that would be great. We are completely 100% volunteer run. No amount of dollars that come in through fundraising goes towards any sort of personnel costs. We are all people who just love dogs. We're a little bit crazy about it.
Hence, for love of dogs. What is it? For love of dogs, like the number 4 LUV of dogs.com. Is that what it is?
.org. I think. Oh well, I bought the .com and redirected it to our .org.
So right. Well,
whatever.
there you go. Just a spontaneous promo for the dogs there because Michelle started talking about it, and then I was like, she'll follow my lead. She knew what was up. Anyway,
like a dog
guys,
on a walk.
Well, you
or
said
like
it, not me. You said it. Anyway, guys.
I just love animals. Any animals. If you're a rabbit rescue, cool. If you once saved a turkey from the jaws of a crocodile and now that's your baby, cool. I just love animals. I just want them to do well.
How do you feel about that animal in today's movie that I asked you about just a little while ago?
Here's the thing. We never talk about the movie before we record, but JD talks about the movie before we record, and I just don't respond.
I make random comments when I'm not able to control myself. Yeah. How is that new?
Sometimes you do message me, I hate this movie. Usually that's not about one we're recording about, but I'm like, oh, you're going to have thoughts. What do you mean you texted in the movie theater to tell me you didn't like this movie? That's how bad it was.
Michelle, everybody knows I've only seen one movie in the movie theaters recently. Thanks for ruining it.
You saw one today. You went to a second one today.
I did not go to another movie today. What are you talking about? Oh, you're trying to lie for me. Wow, I'm slow. Anyway, guys, we're talking about movies. That's what we do here on We Watch Shudder. If it's your first time tuning in, thank you. We appreciate you stopping to check out the show. Most weeks we talk about things that are new on Shudder. Other weeks when they don't have new stuff, we talk about other things. This week, there is new stuff on Shudder. What are we talking about today, Michelle?
Exhuma.
Not to be confused with eczema. That's a different thing, and it's not even spelled the same. It's a totally different kind of horror movie.
Absolutely.
Now, I don't mean to completely tangent off immediately. I want a horror movie now called Exhuma that is just a body horror nightmare of people breaking out in skin rashes and stuff. That already exists, but there's not one called Exhuma is my point.
What we need, I have psoriasis. Luckily, it's finally treated by medication. Psoriasis horror movie because it is insanely painful.
Please make sure you understand she said psoriasis, not cirrhosis. Michelle is not suffering from heavy alcohol consumption.
Well, shit, now I kind of wish I had both, though, because I would just be like, I have psoriasis and cirrhosis, and people are like, I don't know what any of those words mean.
That's usually how it goes.
If I'm a mean drinking person, I'd be itchy and bitchy.
I went to my doctor the other day to have a CT scan to see what might be going on with the sinuses in my head because I have trouble breathing through my nose sometimes. And in the consult about my sinuses, my doctor had the audacity to say to me, "You got some trouble with your teeth, JD. We recommend you go see a dentist as soon as possible." And I sent him a message back that said, "Sure, Doc, you got 20 grand. I'll go tomorrow." And he didn't think that was funny.
I had a very similar experience where I went to my dermatologist. Like I said, I have psoriasis and it's finally controlled. I went to my dermatologist and she was out on an emergency. So I went to see a substitute dermatologist who I had never met before. So he was just like going through my history and stuff. And then he asked me, is there any possibility that you could be pregnant? And I was like, hell no. I was like, I am on birth control and my husband has a vasectomy just to be on the safe side. And then he started asking me all sorts of questions about my birth control. Like, well, why would you be on birth control if he has a vasectomy? Why would he have a vasectomy if you're on birth control? I was like, well, first off, you should know that birth control is used for things aside from controlling
You're
birth,
a doctor.
which is why I take it.
You should have some very good ideas from the jump why you might also. What the?
Exactly.
Jesus.
And then and it's like, plus you should know that birth control is not 100% effective, especially when taking other medication, which you should know that I'm on. And I've never met you before. Why are you talking to me about this?
Right.
It felt like he was like really asking like a lot of questions to the point where I was like, neither of us want children. And he finally just like shut up. But I was like, this is so weird, bro. Stop.
The next time you run into that situation where people keep pushing and prodding the issue, you should be like, yes, he has a vasectomy, I'm on birth control, and I also take Plan B 3 times a week just to be safe.
I've heard from friends that Plan B has terrible side effects sometimes, so that's why I don't.
Well,
otherwise
clearly,
I absolutely would, just to be on the safe side.
Clearly, Michelle, I'm not suggesting you actually do this, but it would.
No, I think that's sound medical advice.
Yeah, I mean, if what you're seeking is to ensure /babies, then I think it's pretty sound medical advice.
I could stop having sex, but come on, you guys.
Come
on,
there's welcome to
it.
therapy. Does she?
Yeah.
I guess it depends on where specifically, but
there's a whole song. She better.
Well,
I'm so mad. Otherwise,
since when has it mattered what she wants, Michelle? Let's get real about our society. I'm not saying it shouldn't. I'm just saying it hasn't.
Well, this is when we watch Shudder. Tune in next week. We have a lot of movie ideas and very little to say about existing
Thanks for
movies.
joining us for our insane chat.
It's been a while since we had one of those. So it's good. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to We Watch Shudder. My name is Michelle, and who's here with me?
It's JD. Yeah. Michelle, do you want to summarize for these folks what this is a Shudder exclusive or original?
I don't know.
Exclusive. It's an exclusive. Would you like to summarize the Shudder exclusive Exhuma for these people?
Yes. 8 minutes into the episode, I would love to tell them about the movie that we are recording an episode
Sweet.
about.
Let's not act like this doesn't happen all the time.
Sometimes it's a little more oh dear God, gregarious.
I thought you were about to say agrarian, and I'm like, we are not growing crops. I don't know what you're.
There's a word that in my head is a very good word to use for this situation. Anyway, according to the IMDb description, the process of excavating an ominous grave unleashes dreadful consequences buried underneath. Exhuma, 2024, 2 hours, 14 minutes. Shudder exclusive. Stars some people. JD, would you like to give us your spoiler-free thoughts?
Yes, I can do that for sure. Here are my spoiler-free thoughts. I very clearly do not know enough about Korean folklore to understand even half of what's going on in this movie. I enjoyed what I saw, the bits that I picked up on, which was... look, guys, I'm not even entirely certain I followed the plot, like the basic dot-to-dot plot on this entirely. There's sort of a rope-a-dope zig when it shoulda zag sort of thing, and I'm not sure where the separation is. I'm hoping Michelle can help us when we get into the spoilers. But I did enjoy this. It's another Korean movie that is probably about 30 minutes too long, similar to one that we just recorded recently called Train to Busan. Did you hear that yet? No, you haven't, because it comes out in 2 days. If you're listening to this the day it dropped, I gotta stop talking about time, Michelle.
Time
Anyway,
is an illusion.
time, yeah. Anyway, what I was able to understand about this, I thought was really good. I thought the horror elements were really good. They do some things with reflections and mirrors, especially in the first half of this movie, that I really thought was super dope. I feel like I'm gonna like it even more once I really understand more about it. But for what I was able to exhume from it, I'm giving this a 4. This was a lot of fun.
Respectable 4. Okay. Would you like my spoiler-free thoughts, JD?
I mean, not particularly, but go ahead.
Okay. Well, I've given you my thoughts on a lot of other things. I will now give you my spoiler-free ones on this movie. Uh, Here's what I'm gonna say, starting it right off the top. I had to decide whether this was gonna be a 5 skull for me. Despite not knowing the lore, I thought this movie was a when evil lurks situation of this is a world that has these rules that are just widely accepted, and they don't exist in the world that I, Michelle Roller, exist in. This movie has created them. And so there were certain things that I didn't understand, but I went along with. And I also knew this is a Korean film. The little bits that seem like a little too far out there that the movie did not explain, like, that's fine. I might just be missing something. Afterwards, I had to go look up, like, what the fuck happened at the ending. I did watch the ending twice because I did not understand. I watched it the second time and still did not understand. And then I found several threads because this was a Shudder exclusive. It came out in Korea 2 months ago. There are lots of discussions from its initial release of people explaining folklore and what certain things mean. And no, this entire movie is based in common knowledge of Korean supernatural entities that I just don't know. And I think that is incredible. I think it's really cool that they took something that is so known in their culture that they could put into a movie in a way that somebody who doesn't know anything from that culture would appreciate the film, but also people who do already know that don't feel like they're being spoon fed things like, yes, we understand this. I would compare it to like if I was telling people about an American ghost. Most people in our general regional area would understand, like, oh, yeah, it's a person who died and they had a strong connection to this place and they might come back and haunt people. And as we learn from this movie, one of the references is not an American ghost that they talk about. So it's just really cool that they managed to keep me along for the ride in a way that I felt like they made this up, and yet people who did know it did not feel, like it's just telling us too much and we know this and they're just trying to cater. So I think that's an incredible a testament to the storytelling in this. I was along for the ride. I was fascinated. I could not get enough of it. I seriously had to consider that 5. It just I think because I didn't understand it.
Yeah.
The ending, I think that ending, if it makes sense now that I know what happened, but I did not know at the time. And for that, I have to give it a 4.75, but goddamn, I really debated if this was going to be my newest 5 skull. It's
Yeah,
been a while.
it's interesting to me that you say like it gave you that very legitimate impression of being like an entirely created but fully created and conceptualized world. My reaction to this was immediately, oh, I bet you there's a million Korean folklore things happening here that I just don't know. Because there were little bits that I did. Like, it was interesting to me when they well, I guess this is spoiler section stuff. I'm getting ahead of myself. We'll talk about that
okay.
in just
Yeah.
a moment. But
I
yeah,
didn't
this
even catch
was this was a lot of fun. You're very right. Incredible that I could not understand so much of it and still get as much out of it as I did. It's like it's a thing from a book called A Canticle for Leibowitz. If you've never read it, it's a pretty dope sci-fi novel. But I don't remember, I'm paraphrasing here, but they talk about how the really immortal, great works of art and creation and storytelling are those ones that are simple enough on the surface for and just about anybody to be able to come in and have a basic grasp and understanding of, but also deep enough below that to keep anybody who wants to go down the rabbit hole busy for a lifetime. And I think that's kind of the experience I got here.
100%. That exactly sums up exactly what I feel about it. Where
Yep.
I watch the movie, and generally, I like a movie if I go down a rabbit hole afterwards. That keeping me involved and engaged afterwards and thinking about it. I don't just want something where everything's neatly wrapped up. I do want to go read about things that I saw, or I want to keep thinking about it and like, why did this character make that decision? This is incredible. I think if I had 100% gotten the ending, it would have been a 5. It just there was, oh my God, my Alexa just went off and I jumped so high. She's telling me to start my car because I never drive, and I have her remind me that I have to go drive, or I have to turn it on so my battery doesn't die because I'm tired of buying batteries. Anyway, yeah, Jesus Christ, my heart is going so fast, faster than usual, which is a lot for me. I might die. Okay. So, spoiler section.
Yeah. So,
I'll catch my breath.
side note, yeah, if you are tuning in just for the first time, from here we're going full spoilers. We're going into a deep dive discussion. So, if you want to see the movie, before we do that, please do come back after you've had a chance to see it. But this is where you're going to want to stop listening. So, Michelle, as I typically do, I literally finished this film 5 minutes before we started recording, and I feel like I'm going to have a lot to say about it and a lot of questions. And I know you had mentioned that you've done a bunch of deep diving on this, so why don't we let you do an incredibly fun and delightful, because goddamn, I'm waiting to see how you summarize this thing. And then I think what I'd like to do is maybe do kind of like a Q&A and see like a couple of the big things on my mind and see what you can tell me about them. How does that sound?
That sounds great because I have so many copy pasted comments that are in a question and answer style.
There are a couple of very big things, including, frankly, one. And it's interesting to me that the guy who is so connected to narrative and story in that sense, there is a very crucial element of the entire plot of this film that I am not certain about, and I still had a great time with it. So anyway,
what you messaged me about?
No, it's not the snake lady, which we're look at spoilers section. We'll talk about the snake lady.
Snake lady.
Anyway, please tell these people what happens in this movie.
Okay. I don't remember how it begins, but you know what? It doesn't matter. Some people show up and there's a baby and the baby's unhappy, and that's generally how babies are. And they're like, this baby has a ghost or whatever. And they're like, we got to go to the grave of this person and make sure that the grave of this person is taken care of properly so that this baby can sleep. And that is well known folklore to us for some reason. And then they all go to a grave and they're like, we have to be very respectful and careful about how we do this. And the grave is on a mountain and it's just a big mound of dirt with nothing else around it. But yet this is like the billionaire family's grave. Oh yeah, there's a billionaire family. Basically, like Bruce Wayne is there and he's like, my baby won't stop crying. And they're like, that's what babies do. And he's like, no, but like more than usual. And they're like, oh, it's haunted. So they all go to like the Bruce Wayne family grave and they're like, oh, this doesn't seem right. Why is he just buried here? And they're like, oh, because of grave robbers. And they're like, okay, cool. I'm really glad he has a nice view. I can see North Korea. I can see Russia from my house. That's basically what happened. And the one guy is like, we are not going to exhume. So exhumation, removing a body. That was pretty cool. I did not know that. And I was like, oh, that makes so much sense. I'm also obsessed with the game right now called Graveyard Keepers. I was like, we're being very on theme today. So they're like, we're not going to exhume this body because this is sketchy as fuck. And they're like, no, we know, but like we should still do it. And everybody goes, okay. So they exhume the body and then they drive away in a car with the body, but then they have to bring the body because there's a bad storm, and they're like, we can't bury the body when it's raining. That's a bad time. And they're like, okay. So then they bring the body someplace, and they had promised they were not going to open the box, the casket, the casket, not just the box, the casket. They weren't going to open it, but then they fucking open it, and bad things happen. The one girl's got a nosebleed, and she's like, a dude flew by my face, and he was a ghost. And they're like, that's a bad thing. We should protect the baby. Oh no, he's going after all of his relatives. And then so the ghost, one by one, like a ghost of Christmas past, except so much worse, shows up and just starts like terrorizing his relatives. And then he takes possession of the one guy, and the one guy breaks his own neck, and that's pretty cool. But then they realize there's still something kind of fucked up about the grave, so they go back. Also, when they were exhumating the body, there was a snake with like
It's
a lady's
exhuming.
face. Exhuming, yeah, but like exhumate, it's so much fun to say.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Yeah,
Sorry, Captain
exhumate.
Pedantic strikes again. You were just about to talk about
Yeah,
the snake lady.
I was. So they when they were like undo oh my god, there was a whole ritual when she got exhumated too, and that looked fucking great. Why was oh yeah, it's so good. And so the guy, he's like got a shovel, and he looks down, and there's a snake with a screaming face of a lady on it. Oh shit, guys, new snake just dropped. Have you heard of it? And he hadn't, and he got scared, and he cut that head off. And so the lady was like, I don't like this. I'm a snake. Hiss. And so they go back to the grave, and they're like, there's something wrong about this grave. And then they find, whoa, second grave, double grave. Just when you think you got one, there's two. And then this one is buried standing upright, and it's surrounded by barbed wire. And they're like, you guys, don't think this is a good guy grave. This is probably a really bad thing. And then some things happen. That spirit gets unleashed, and he is a gigantic fucking samurai, and he's like a big boy, and he's terrorizing everybody. I'm realizing this plot summary is getting too long. So then he is a bad guy, and I don't even know how to say how they get rid of him. He takes over he doesn't even take over the one guy. He kind of takes over the guy, and the guy is laying in the hospital bed, and he's covered in Buddhist symbols. And so they realize that they can be protected by Buddhist symbols, because when the samurai tried to cut that guy, he avoided those. So they're like, those tattoos mean something. So then they cover their faces in them. And the one guy at the road is like, what? And they're like, nah, man, it's just the new makeup fad. Have you heard of it? And he's like, oh shit, is that as good as the screaming face of a lady on a snake? And they're like, yeah, the same one. He's like, go on through. And so they go to the woods, and they're like trapping the samurai guy. And there's a whole thing about the history of this family, and also the history of this guy. And he's not, at first they're like, whoa, this isn't a Korean ghost. This is a Japanese ghost, which, like, what? They're like completely different things. And then they're like, never mind. It's not a Japanese ghost. It's an anima, which is a being that becomes like merged with a physical object and should not exist. And I'm like, what is happening? And so they go to take care of this guy. And then wood is the opposite of metal, fire is the opposite of water, wet wood destroys flaming metal. They take down the samurai guy, and then it's a happy ending. I did not see that coming. And then I had to go Google and figure out what the hell just happened, and I missed so much, especially in that summary. I don't know how to even start explaining what the second half of this movie is.
Yeah, curiously enough, for a moment there, the audio dropped out on my side. My headphones just stopped playing audio. And I panicked very briefly, and then I was like, no, it doesn't matter if I hear what she says anyway, because it's probably only going to make half sense anyway. So I just came back in. No, look, let me just get right to it, Michelle. First of all, I want to make sure I understand this is basically two movies, right? And like the whole first half is okay. So here's how I understand it.
Okay.
The first grave with the billionaire's grandfather, who's trying to kill all of his descendants and the baby.
Yep.
Is the one dude, but he's buried on top of the other dude as a decoy. And that other dude is like some ancient samurai guy who was killed and buried there with his sword like shoved inside his corpse. And then the whole thing became like a fire sword spirit thing. And so really that whole first chunk about the one ghost is just like it's its own like little side quest that leads up to the big bad. Did I get that? Like the big guy at the end and the guy who's trying to kill his family at the beginning are not the same guy, right?
You are correct.
Okay.
It is like when you're playing Final Fantasy VII and you encounter Sephiroth with Genova at like the end of Disc 2, beginning of Disc 3, and you're like, this is not the final boss. This seems pretty bad, but I know I got a whole lot of movie/video game left. And then you find out, no, I'm not going to defeat Sephiroth. There's a whole other thing that we're leading up to. Whoa, this boss is not the big baddie. And you're like blown away. That's exactly it.
I like that, frankly. For a minute, I was like, oh, this is weird. But then it's like, it's just a different kind of storytelling, right? Like, American Western storytelling doesn't have a lot of mini-bosses, at least traditionally from what I've seen. It
helps us establish what they're doing
and
how they do it.
Yeah, they have, like, henchmen and lieutenants, but like there's never like specific like mini boss missions and whatnot. Anyway, okay, no, I just because there was a minute there where I was like, wait, he was supposed to be a guardian against himself, and he's keeping himself in the. Oh man, I got real lost for a minute.
Second guy, the first guy was just really pissed off at his relatives. The first guy was like,
because they cursed him
apparently. Yeah, one of the things is that Koreans believe that well, I guess I shouldn't generalize, but there is a Korean belief.
It's a Korean folklore, yes.
Yes, Korean folklore is that once you bury somebody, if it's in an uncomfortable situation, like if the spirit isn't happy about their situation, they will come back and scream at their descendants to like go and fix their grave. And that's kind of what they do with that first one of like the spirit was unhappy and he was telling his relatives, so then they had to make the spirit happy and go to either a new location or a cremation. So that grandpa was just screaming at his relatives and screaming through his grandson and being like, you guys, do you know what you did to me? I am having a shitty time. And then when they let him out, he's like, I can't believe I was there. Yeah, exactly. He was so pissed. He's also like, you never write, you never visit. I don't have food left on my grave.
Okay. So. Michelle, let me ask you my next question. That was my big plot detail question that I had to be like, I gotta make sure I know this. Okay. What can you tell me that you found out about Japanese ghosts? Because I'm not gonna lie, that felt kind of racist. Or like, you know, like I was just like, man, there's like Japanese ghosts are all angry sons of bitches, and you don't want to tangle with a Japanese ghost. I was like, what is going on right now?
Did you know anything about the Japanese occupation of Korea?
I know very little. I know I look. I understand there's some bad blood there.
Well, no. It's actually it's more. Once I read it, it made more sense because I also was like, "Is this just a Korean movie about hating the Japanese?" I also went there.
For a minute, I was, and then I did. Frankly, eventually, now there's got to be some. This has got to be another level of that I just don't understand culturally. So
yes. So apparently the Parks, they're the main family, the Bruce Waynes of this. The Parks, I don't remember exactly how it was explained, but during the Japanese occupation of Korea, they were a Korean family that turned against the Koreans and went to the side of the Japanese, and that's how they made their generational wealth. So they left the grandpa there and went to America, and that's why the grandpa's so pissed off. And then this whole thing with the metal and the iron, how that's a big thing. Apparently, the Japanese had put 4 spikes or irons or stakes or whatever in Korea in order to, I forgot how they said it, but to like keep the Korean land power down. And that's just like a thing that's believed. So this whole thing like really goes back to the battle during that time, which I knew nothing about and cannot properly explain. But apparently everybody's like, oh yeah, it's just the iron spikes. That's what they're talking about. It's one of the spikes that they planted there.
So these are literally very specifically like like 4 of some kind of like mystical, supernatural, occultish iron spikes that were driven into
Yes.
specific locations in the land where nobody knows where they are, but there's specific locations that by being placed there with this material, it creates energy flow, a very feng shui kind of thing, you might say. Now, I don't know about feng shui all that much. Based on what little I know about it, sounds like it ties in with those ideas anyway.
Yes, that is actually a pretty good summary. And one of the theories that I heard, because I have just been on Korean forums and like translating like crazy. So some of this is lost in translation too. I went down rabbit holes. The 4 spikes were literal tangible spikes, but then, and this is just one of the theories, they think that one of the guys knew that one of the spikes was about to get uncovered, potentially like somebody who knew that grandpa or those grave robbers that they talk about, and so they transferred the spike to this entity and buried it standing straight up and down. And that became the new spike because nobody would like think to unearth this big general. So it like transformed. So they were 4 literal spikes. And then somebody was like, no, we got to make one of these like this guy. And
Yeah,
he's
and
the
so
spike now.
and that's why like they took the flaming sword, which I assume represents the spike, and
Yep.
put it inside the guy's body. And that's
Yep.
why, because it's this crazy, powerful, mystical spike, he becomes entangled with it in his spirit, and now he's a crazy fire demon. And that effect was super fucking cool. Guys, if
I
I don't,
know.
this is a reference that it's gonna date me a little bit, but not as bad as a reference could date me. That fire creature reminded me of the smoke monster from Lost, only if it was fire. And I really enjoyed the way it looked. I thought all of the effects in this were really great. Even I even like the makeup job they did for the like the anima demon towards the end. It very much reminds me of like a Japanese oni mask. Right, which is obviously appropriate because it's he was a Japanese general, and but yeah, what else did I want to ask you about what might be
Oh, I
going
got some
on
things
here?
to say. I got some things.
Oh well,
Uh,
just the one other thing that I did say. What else do I want to ask you, Michelle?
I know. I
Can you?
just wanted to respond about the
Oh,
samurai guy.
oh, please go ahead.
Okay. The samurai guy. So I was taking notes during this one, which obviously went off the rails very quickly, and I just gave up. But like one of my notes was a Japanese ghost will kill anything and everything nearby. Racist? Like I did not
Yeah,
know how to feel about that at first. It
you
felt
don't want
awkward
to.
of like, oh, I don't
Let me tell
know.
you, you don't want to tangle with the Japanese ghosts.
But
Woof.
I do like this cross-cultural supernatural thing where like it would be like if there was a movie about me where suddenly I encountered a Wendigo and I didn't know a lot except that Wendigos are fucking scary. Like I like when that happens in a movie of like I know very little about this thing except that it'll fuck me up. And I'm like, that makes sense. It's not racist. It's Wendigos will fuck you up. That's all I know about them. And they're like, a Japanese ghost, that'll fuck you up. Korean ghost, nah, it's fine. But like a Japanese ghost. And so that made more sense. Anyway, what I had written about the samurai was that I like and it's funny because then they solidified exactly what I was saying in dialogue a little bit later. But I love that the entity is not just like this ghost or this like kind of there guy who can manipulate things. He is 100% tangible. The threat is that he will physically harm you with his body. He does happen to be super strong and like these other things, obviously, but he's just a big guy who can crush you. And that is a legitimately scary thing, regardless of the supernatural background of it. So like I love that element. I love that you can feel how you want about ghosts. This is a big guy and he's coming at you. And he's a big guy and he's coming at you. Like that's a great,
Yeah,
great
I
thing.
think that's a great element that they don't really ever dive into or explain. At least not that I caught. But not only is this like an ancient like Japanese like an old samurai war general or whatever. He's also like fucking 8 feet tall.
Yeah, he's a big guy.
He's massive. It just for me, it definitely touches on like that David and Goliath kind of imagery. He's huge, but he's not too huge, I think is what I'm trying to say, right?
Large.
Yeah, it's like you'd be like, yeah, I could see like one, and especially in that day and age, a person with that physical size and prowess would probably be a formidable soldier. But yeah, it's I am, like you said, really impressed by how they managed to convey enough story without knowing a whole lot of the details. Michelle, tell me, in your adventures and research, what all did you find out about the foxes and their significance?
Yeah, so the fox is actually kind of cool because I did know a little bit of that lore.
Me too.
Yeah, so fox, kitsune. People said that they think that when they were saying gisune, it was just they're not hearing kitsune correctly.
Right.
And that all made a ton of sense. So the fox splits the spine of the tiger, that specific phrase. So the fox, the kitsune, was trying to keep the spine of the tiger, with tiger being Korea, the spine of the tiger is those spikes. Somehow that's how, or the spine of the tiger is the core of Korea, and the fox put the spikes to split the core of Korea, is essentially what it came down to. So all these references of foxes, that part I understood. Spine of the tiger, I did not know. Like, oh, the essence of Korean land, essentially. Yeah, that's the big thing about foxes, is that the fox was the wily guy trying to keep the spikes in place.
I guess looking at that. Did you find anything? Because my immediate thought is, because that line, the fox splits the waist of the tiger or whatever, that's a line from the Anima, right? The big bad at the end of the whole thing, and I just took it to mean that the fox, the monk Gisune, or as we think probably Kitsune. I assumed he was just saying, that monk fucked me up, right? I assumed that the tiger was the anima, and it was some reference to the fox monk, sort of ensnaring him or breaking him, so to speak, by keeping him trapped in the ground.
Yeah,
but
no,
I also didn't know jack about anything about no iron poles and Japanese ghosts. I
went down some rabbit hole.
I don't want to. I certainly am not the kind of person, all things considered, to have the. Even if it is connected to those, it maybe still feels just a little racist. Like, I get it, but like, nah. I mean, not everybody's. Not all the Japanese ghosts are gonna be bad, right? Like, this seems a little stereotypy, is all I'm saying.
Maybe they have like Japanese ghost, and that's what they translate it to. But then, like, this is in their language, Japanese ghost who's a fucking asshole, and they just didn't put that part.
If somebody with ties to Japanese cultural tradition wants to drop us a message and say, "No, they're right, Japanese ghosts are fucking assholes," then I'll be like, "Okay."
Have you not seen The Ring and The Grudge?
Okay, that's fair.
Think of all the Japanese ghosts you know. Have you ever heard of a? Have you ever heard of one who is just like, I'm just here to give you cookies? Like, I'm sure they exist.
You're not wrong. They do. At
Japanese
least in the stories
horror is,
and you can't even say that's a Western thing, because so much of the ones we've done are just remakes of the ones they did already.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's why I'm like, those are the
you're
two
not wrong.
biggest
Those
Japanese
ghosts
ones.
are maybe it's not so. It just. Man, it really perked my ears up that when she hit that line, she's like, "Oh,
Yeah.
Japanese ghost will destroy you." Jesus,
they don't need an excuse.
Come on,
Jesus.
come on.
Yeah.
Sam,
But now
what
that
did you
you've seen this Japanese
here?
ghost, and it's an entity that embodied a flaming sword, you're like, oh, that's what you think a ghost is? Like it's not it's not like a dead person. That's a different thing.
I kind of want to start a death metal band called Japanese Ghosts. People will be like, what is that even about? I'll be like, you don't know, brother. You don't know.
You're like, we'll fuck up anything. We don't need an excuse.
Japanese Ghost.
The ending of this movie, did you understand what happened?
Well, it depends on what you mean by the ending of the movie. Do I understand that everybody went home and... Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. So the samurai is... his elemental forces are metal and fire, and so he just countered those elemental forces with their polar opposite elemental forces.
Yeah.
I thought that was very... That's another thing about it that I actually think was very, very, very clearly presented that just about anybody should have been able to pick up on. I thought it was pretty clearly delineated, yeah.
It was clearly explained, but the concept of, like, how is wet wood stronger than flaming metal?
Yeah,
like,
you do have to have a certain understanding of those elemental forces and that basic concept of yin and yang and polar opposites, and neither one necessarily being negative, they're just opposed, right? They're a push-pull. And so, yeah, I did kind of instinctually understand that from what little bit I do know.
Yeah. I mean, they explain it pretty explicitly, too, for the people who don't know. It's just seeing it in action is like... but then it makes sense that, like, oh, it's Geomancer Kim is the guy who figured this out because he knew all about this. It was just like, since they're polar opposites, the idea of one defeating the other, like Wetwood, like, will kill the other one. Like, that's where I was a little bit lost, but apparently that was just fine because I was like, well, you would think that, like, but I guess opposing sides, just I didn't think one would be stronger than the other, I think is what it came down to.
I
thought it would just be an inevitable push and pull.
I forget what they were called, and our mutual friend Adam will be so mad at me for not remembering, but it's an 80s toy. They were these little itty bitty dudes, and they're little, like, maybe like 2-inch tall figures, and their gimmick was they had a heat sensitive hologram thing on their chest, so you put your thumb over it for a little while, and then it revealed like some wood or some fire or whatever, and they were based like in different elements. They were different elemental creatures. That was my first learning about how polar opposites be. Like, why does wood beat metal? Well, because it's wet. It just makes sense, right? No, I'm kidding. No,
you could have just played Pokemon. Play a lot of Pokemon. It's very easy to figure it out then.
Michelle, Pokemon came so many years after. It's the cute little dudes I'm talking about.
Pokemon became popular in America way after. I think Pokemon was around in the early 80s.
Well, I don't think it matters what was going on anywhere but America ever, Michelle.
Fair. Nobody else. We don't care at all about this Korean movie that I almost gave 5 skulls to because, it would give 5 skulls if it was American. Oh, God, no.
Oh, no. God. Oh, man. Somebody's going to try and remake this, aren't they? God, I just had that thought when you just said American, because I also just recently saw the trailer for the American Speak No Evil, and man, that made me real anxious, and I wish I hadn't seen it. God, yeah, I just had fully formed the idea of an American remake of this movie in my head, and I was like, oh, please do not. Do not.
No. I just had a realization that most of my 5 skull movies have been from places that weren't not America. Most of my 5 skull ratings are not American movies.
Oh, shit.
I think I just like non-American horror.
That very well could be. Something I did find interesting about this movie that you might be able to notice. Did you, like me, definitely get the impression of some legit like Dario Argento Giallo vibes, like from a visual side of things? in this movie? Or is that just the kind of thing that I
No.
obsess over? I think the thing that really did it for me was that one sequence where you actually see the general dude's hand squeezing the person's heart inside their chest cavity. It sort of reminded me of like the scene in Suspiria where, the thing happens to the heart. We'll say that. You know what I'm talking about. Anyway, I just thought there were some visual elements there that were pretty interesting. It does bring me around to one thing that I have to ask you, Michelle. When you were in the summary portion, you were going through recapping the plot. You mentioned that the billionaire guy, the father of the baby that we're trying to save, and then it turns out that's just mini boss territory. He breaks his own neck.
Yeah.
No.
Well, the thing inside of him breaks his neck.
Did you see it happen?
Yeah, I'm just saying, like.
No, what I mean is
saw him being twisted.
What I mean is, did you see the reflection in the window that actually shows the ghost's hand around his head, twisting his head as he turns it?
No.
Yeah. Dude, you got
it.
The ghost
I will
appears
have to go back.
You did see several places where the ghost appears in reflections, right? Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of them where they were not even pointing it out. I was just actively looking by that point. They did a good job of training me to look for them.
If you go back and watch that sequence, you're going to see the ghost's hands wrapped around the dude's head and just fucking snapping his neck.
I can tell you.
It's brutal.
I can tell you why I didn't see it.
Because you were watching the guy's neck break.
Well, no, because I was sitting there going, ee. I was making sounds like, ooh, like just focusing on like, oh God, is it actually going to happen? Is it going to happen? I was not caring about anything. I was very much in my own head about like that. So I was not looking for ghostly hands. I was like, oh my God, that's fucked up. Like I was making noises.
I did just barely catch it because I was so focused on the actual neck break, right? I'm so watching that happen, and I just happened to turn and get a glimpse of the and then there's the moment after where the dude is looking at the window and he catches just a brief hint of the face in the window, and then it disappears. Oh, that's another thing that reminded me a lot of Suspiria, the ghost wanting to come in through the window. I don't know, a bunch of small little things, but yeah, man, I really enjoyed this. I think what I need to do is I need to spend some time doing what you did and just dropping down some rabbit holes, and then maybe go back and watch it again and see what kind of layers I can pick up on that I just didn't have the baseline information for. Battle Beasts, by the way, is what they were called, those little action figure guys. Battle Beasts from 1986.
I just had a realization. I realize I say that a lot, and then I don't say anything too shocking. But when they were talking about this is a Japanese ghost, I was already prepped for this movie to make me feel slightly like, oh, is this pitting Koreans against Japanese or Koreans against America? Because that's where they were going. Like, I was already prepared because one of the first lines in the movie I wrote down because I didn't understand it and I still don't fully know what she's referring to. But this movie opens with them on the plane going to America, and the flight attendant asks the lady if she wants anything, and she says, no, thank you. By the way, I'm Korean. And the lady goes like, oh, nice, or whatever. And I have no idea what happened in that exchange. I have no clue what that was about.
I do remember the moment, but it seemed so throwaway that I didn't even stop to think about it. And now I'm like,
But
something.
It was so odd to me that I went back and was like, did I miss part of the conversation? And I think something was lost in translation there, but then it was like they made a point to point out that she's Korean. That's going to be important. And now I know that's probably why that exchange happened, but I don't know why the dialogue happened.
Here's my guess. Because the flight attendant or whoever it was, the person on the airplane who speaks to her is a white person, correct? Like or a European person?
Oh, I guess maybe. She wasn't speaking English, so I didn't pay attention to what she said or looked like.
Oh, well, because I'm wondering if what happened there is uh, when she spoke to the lady, she wasn't speaking Korean. Maybe
See,
she was
I
speaking
actually
a
had that
different
theory too.
language.
I thought because Japanese and Korean sounds very similar to me. So I was wondering if she had asked it in Japanese, especially because later on we learn that that's a significant importance. So that's my guess, but they sound so like they're not similar languages. I've heard I like if you really had me study them, I could be like I can tell which one is which. I've watched a lot of anime. I could figure it out. But like in a quick exchange like that, I was like she might have been speaking to her in Japanese. So that's also my theory, but I just wrote it down as like this is going to be important because it's one of the very first things they establish is that this lady is Korean and is going someplace else. And so I went, this is going to be core to the story. And so
Okay.
then when they said it was a Japanese ghost later, I went, oh, that's why that was important because it was a note I had made of like, what does this line mean? What did I miss? So yeah, that's all.
Right on. Now here is one thing, Michelle, that I want to propose to you, and it's all kind of centered around how this movie ends. And I'm 90% certain this is just some wackadoo shit that I thought of, but maybe not. So because this does have like that most there are a couple of casualties, but pretty much everybody survives, right? The drummer who plays his drums through a Marshall stack, he that was the weirdest moment for me. I was just, because I hadn't been paying attention, and then all of a sudden I'm like, why is there a Marshall guitar amplifier at the summoning ritual? Oh, because
I was
it's
about to
making the
say
drums
the
loud.
summoning the summoning ritual song is fucking great.
Oh,
That it like that whole sequence and then later on when they're trying to summon it and the girl's
yeah,
just doing her
yeah.
little chant,
The
fucking
Yeah,
great.
all of
Great
that
song.
stuff, all of that stuff is very reminiscent, and it's been compared to this movie by so many other people. But it's very reminiscent in that sense of the wailing. Like it has some very nice,
I
sort of
also
drawn out,
yeah.
uh, and drawn out in a good way. You get a real sort of sense of the overall experience of this, and I don't know how to say this in any other way that makes sense. Is like I don't know, but it just feels like culturally authentic, right? I just saw that, and that's why I had that experience, is because the way they tell this, it all has that incredible, like developed interior logic, and that immediately just makes me say, oh, there's a ton of stuff happening here that I just don't understand. Um,
Yeah.
but here's so we do end up with the the happy ending, with everybody coming through. Even the old man doesn't die fighting like none of the major cast ends up dying here. And I don't I don't remember what made me think of it, but there was a moment where I was like, is maybe the overall tone of this whole thing being lost in translation as well? Like, is this like a not quite so on the nose Korean Ghostbusters? And these people and like and it's like they're just well because like you said, it's like they they think about it, they all just sort of show up as a team, and they're like, oh, we all got our jobs, and they have all these built-in ready to go rituals and procedures. It feels like this might have been Korean folklore Ghostbusters, and I promise I don't mean that in any kind of insulting way. But do you think maybe we just missed that and this was supposed to be a little wackier than we thought it was?
First off, no. But second off, I do want a sequel now where this is just Korean Ghostbusters because I love these characters.
Turn
Oh
this
my
into
god.
like a comedy TV series.
Yeah. Like I would
Be
love
great.
more of this. And like I hate sequels. I think like very rarely is a sequel deserved. It's either a TV show or one movie. Very rarely do you need a second movie unless it was planned from the start. That's different. Like Kill Bill Volume 1, if they didn't put up Volume 2, people would have been pretty mad. So like sometimes it's justified but it has to be accounted for in the first place. But this one I'd make an argument for Exhuma 2. Where they just like
Exhuma
show up and they're like,
electric
we're ready to do it
boogaloo.
again. Oh my god. Exhuma 2
All right, Michelle,
electric
one
boogaloo.
more. We've
Oh.
danced around it. I actually kind of blanked it out for a minute, but I can't end this episode without asking you, because it's involved in the text message that I sent you. In your research, Michelle, in all of your diving into what was going on in this movie, what the fuck is going on with the tiny snake lady?
Okay, I am going to read directly from the Reddit conversations.
Oh, it was, and I'll be like, I'm glad I remember, because that was one of the things that made me think, wait a minute, is this maybe supposed to be kind of funny a little bit? Because that little thing just shows up and shrieks, and it's like, ah, but it's also like, ha ha! And then it shows up, it shows up again, and the next guy is just like, ah! I gotta know about the tiny snake lady.
This is just one of those things that a lot of people knew about, but a lot of people on Korean forums were asking because it's a Japanese folklore thing. So luckily, they were asking on Korean threads about this movie what it was, and people were explaining Japanese folklore, which is pretty great because then that meant I got it explained to me.
Well, because it was a Japanese ghost and a Japanese monk and
kitsune. There's a lot of Japanese folklore in this Korean movie.
Yeah.
So people were discussing the Korean movie, and therefore I, as an ignorant American, got to learn. So I'm just going to read you from one of the comments that I had copied and pasted. I wish I remembered where from. But you could probably Google this, and you're going to find all the threads that I read. Okay, so snake is a water element, one of the 5 elements used to seal the anima, so killing it resulted in disrupting the energy of the second coffin and leading to a chain of events. For example, it was raining after the snake was killed, then the cremation of Park's grandfather is delayed, and so on. The snake is not just a normal snake, but Nuro-onna, a yokai monster from Japanese folklore, a snake with human head.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I did not understand it, but then I was like, oh, I read a lot of like horror manga. I was like, oh, so I've seen this before. I didn't know that was just like a thing and that's what it's called. That's the part that I missed in the wet wood versus flaming metal was I didn't realize snake water element, and that was the wood part. Like I missed, like I was like, that's just wood. You say it's wet wood, but I don't see the water. And so I got a little bit mixed up about that.
Oh, yeah.
It's Japanese folklore. Yeah. Isn't that great? That's why I love this, because I don't know what the fuck it is, but I like it. And then they're like, no, this is a thing that other people just know about, you stupid American. And I'm like, that's fair. That's fair. I would love more of that.
As much as I enjoyed this movie, I feel like a better title, all things considered, would be Tiny Snake Woman and the Giant Samurai.
That sounds like a Disney film, and I also want that now.
I want that to be the title of this movie, specifically because it sounds like a Disney film. I want to get children to watch this.
I want a spin-off TV show that is the prequel of this movie, where it's just those two on their adventures, the samurai and the screaming snake lady. And then there's a side piece, a side TV show.
Whoa, what are we talking about side piece for here, Michelle? This is not an infidelity podcast. Come on.
I mean, have you seen that samurai and the snake lady? There was some sexual tension there.
You're not wrong.
I'm not wrong. Did you see that snake lady and get like kind of a boner, you guys?
Oh my god.
Like, hear me out.
Well, no, I'm not going to hear you out. We need to wrap this nonsense up. So yeah, that's Exhuma. Jesus Christ. And interestingly enough, we mentioned it, alluded to it earlier, but if you're listening to this when it drops, your very next episode should be in just a couple of days, and it's also a Korean movie. It's a Father's Day special. Michelle finally got me to watch Train to Busan.
Finally.
What did I think of it? This legendary, well-regarded, potentially just listen to the episode, guys. It's Train to Busan. If you don't know anything, if you know anything about me, I don't even know what I'm trying to say at this point, Michelle.
I will say things. So if you have not seen Train to Busan, you have a couple days to do it before our episode drops. And even if you're like in the future and you're listening to this episode, because now we're suddenly famous somehow, and you're like, whoa, I'm gonna go back and binge all 200 episodes. Which this is my okay. So it is currently June 14th. This is my timestamp to say that Aaron has been listening from the beginning of the show and is on like episode 50. So June 14th, I'm calling him out. Let's see how long it takes him to message me and be like, I heard my call out. But if you are listening to this in like 2027 and you still haven't seen Train to Busan and you're like, whoa, that's gonna be the next episode, pause, go watch Train to Busan. Just like pause anything you're doing. You on your way to like a funeral for your grandfather who is being buried on top of a samurai who's pretty pissed off. Cancel it. You got to watch Train to Busan. About to go on a first date with the love of your life because fate exists and you know it, and you know this is finally going to be the one after fucking Cheryl broke your heart and now this other lady, Madeline, is ready to put it back together again. No, cancel that date. You can live alone. It's fine. Go watch Train to Busan. Better yet, invite Madeline over to watch Train to Busan, and if she likes it, then you know she's a keeper. Like unlike that bitch Cheryl. If you're like on your way to like your kid's first birthday party, fuck it, they'll have another birthday party. Hopefully, watch Train to Busan. Cancel everything. Watch Train to Busan. Seen Train to Busan before? Fuck it, cancel everything. Watch it a second time. Seen it twice? Watch it a third time. You get what I'm saying, folks. Watch Train to Busan. And then if you don't like it, please don't message me because it's just gonna make me sad.
That just happened. I guess you guys know how Michelle feels about Train to Busan. How did JD feel about Train to Busan? Let's all find out together.
They're too busy.
Oh wow!
They're gone. They're watching Train to Busan.
Why?
They're
okay, that's
Train
fair.
to Busan.
Oh Jesus Christ! Say goodnight, Michelle.
Good night, Michelle.
For more horror content, visit WeWatchShudder.com, where you'll find our world-famous, patent-pending Ghoul blog and Squelch files, as well as a schedule of upcoming episodes. Find us on social media at WeWatchShudder on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and I guess Twitter if you're still doing that for whatever reason. You can email us. mail@WeWatchShudder.com is the address. mail@WeWatchShudder.com. You can even call and leave us a voicemail, 701-566-9510. No, really, 701-566-9510. Give it a shot, see what happens. We Watch Shudder is a production of Rat Factory Media.